Hey everybody, how are we doing today? We are back. It is Wednesday. It is another installment of the Ultimate Rod series. And today we're going to talk about what is locally one of our favorite presentations. It seemed to die for a while. Now it's back. And it's just a classic fun presentation that is a lot of fun, and you can really get into some nice schools of fish. And we're talking about big, deep diving crankbaits. We're talking 15 to 20 foot, your 6XDs, 8XDs, any of your big crankbaits. We're going to talk about what makes an excellent big, deep crankbait rod. And here we're in southern Indiana. We're close to Kentucky Lake. Kentucky Lake went through a down cycle. It was incredibly tough. There were basically no fish on ledges, or it was few and far between. But now it's back. The schools are back. The populations are back. People are catching them the old school traditional ways. Yes, you can still catch them on forward-facing sonar, but we're going with the old school stuff, the deep cranking, the big swim baits, the worm, the Carolina rig. All the fun stuff is back. And so we thought now is the perfect time to go over a good, deep cranking rod. So for those of you that are new, or a quick refresher if you've watched these before, we go for 3 price points here. Under 150, the ultimate rod under 300, and I don't care what it costs, just give me the best. So that's the format today, but we're kind of going to go off script. I got 5 rods sitting here, guys. I got 5, 2 bonus rods. So I'm going to see if I can not talk too much, go fast, but still give you the information that you need. So before I get into the first rod under 150, some criteria of what we are looking for and what makes an excellent deep cranking rod. Number 1, it needs to be a minimum of 7'6" in length for my personal preference. If we get into anything shorter than 7'6", it is too hard to get the proper casting distance, in my opinion. It also is not advantageous to fighting a fish with a shorter rod when you've got a plug that's down in 18, 20 feet of water. I like having that extra length and that kind of extra leverage, I guess, to really lean into that fish and crank that thing up from the depths. So I like the extra length. It's also just what I'm comfortable with, but the main thing is that casting distance is of premium importance. So ideally I'm in the 7'10" to 8 foot range, but a 7'6" will do the job just fine. So all of these rods are 7'6" or longer. We need, in a lot of these other videos, we have talked about how I like a nice thinner blank. I don't want something chunky and bulky. That's kind of the opposite here. I want something that is, a big, solid, robust blank that I can really feel have the confidence to take that plug and absolutely load the rod up and just launch it as far as I possibly can. I don't want to have, a streamlined, crisp, thin diameter blank. I want something that's going to be able to stand up to the, I don't want to say abuse, but it kind of feels like abuse of that violent, lean back and just absolutely hammer that crankbait as far as you can, because that's really important here. You've got to get the distance to be able to get the bait down into the strike zone and be able to keep it there for a long enough period of time to elicit a reaction. So those are what we're looking for. I want a thicker blank, something that's like a composite rod or even a glass rod is ideal for this. And we want something that has some backbone. I do not want a totally parabolic rod. I want it to get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm leaning, the rod is flexing. At some point, it needs to be able to demonstrate to me that it has the proper amount of backbone to turn a fish if I have to. Now, you don't typically need to do that with a deep crankbait, but it's nice to have the option. And I also think what that aids in as well is when you're on the bottom with that bait, which hopefully you will be on the bottom when you're retrieving the crankbait, you want it to be, you want to come over a stump and you want to feel exactly what that bait is doing. You want to feel it hit the stump, deflect, crawl it over the top, and then you're back engaged, reeling at full speed. So that's kind of what I'm looking for there, and not having something that is too mushy. I want it to have some form of a backbone. Now, the opposite side of that is I need it to have a lot of tip in the first half of the rod to at least be soft enough that, 1, when a fish bites it, it's going to load properly, and 2, I don't want to lose a fish, so I need to have something that has enough tip that it can absorb the impact. I mean, this is a high impact presentation. You've got 6 total hooks, 2 treble hooks typically on these baits. So you are bringing a fish up from sometimes a long way out from deep water, and you need to be able to get that fish back to the boat without it being able to throw that bait. So you need some tip to absorb the impact from all of the crazy jumps, turns, dives, everything this bass is going to do to try to get off the hook. So we need both of those things, and we need a perfect combination of that. And also we need enough tip that you can really, again, going back to the casting distance being super important, we need a tip that will allow you to launch that bait. And so there's a lot of, the good news here is there's a lot of rods that fit that criteria. The other good news is they don't have to cost a whole heck of a lot of money. There's a lot, and I mean a lot, of really good price point deep cranking rods. And we're gonna go through them right now. So first one, under $150. I picked 2 here. I'm gonna start with the lesser expensive model. We have a Falcon rod here. It is the Falcon Lowrider. It is the Composite Cranker 2. So this is a 7'6", medium heavy. And this rod has it's a composite rod, as I'm sure you can figure out from the name, but it has a very old school glass feel to it. So it's big, thick diameter blank. It is fairly heavy, which doesn't bother me too much because you're reeling with the rod tip down. So that's just not a huge deal. It's not balanced well, but it doesn't need to be for this presentation. But this price point on this rod comes in at $129.99. So you're well under $150. It has all of the characteristics that we need it to, that we just went through. It's got some backbone. Once you get into this rear section of the rod, you can really manhandle this thing when it comes to making a long cast with a big plug. And it's got plenty of tip to where you're going to be able to load up nicely onto a bass. And it does it all for $129. So the other thing I will say I like about this, I don't get geeked out personally on full grip versus split grip. To me, it's both fine. I don't necessarily really have a preference. Deep cranking, I kind of want a full handle. I kind of want a full cork handle, or if it's EVA foam, that's fine. But that's really my preference. It just feels more, it feels more comfortable to me when you load up to make a long cast, that you've got a full piece of cork and you can really load that thing up underneath your arm and underneath your kind of your shoulder area there and your armpit, and just really start cranking the hell out of that thing. So I do like that it's got this nice full cork handle on it. So first one up here, Falcon Lowrider Composite Cranker 2. Excellent choice, $129.99. Definitely give these a look. And Falcon rods are just awesome, guys. Everybody likes Falcon. So second rod, we're going right at the $150 price point, $149.99. We're going with a glass composite rod. It's a Shimano product. It's the Intenza series. And you could tell from watching these videos, we really like these Intenza rods, and they are an excellent value for the money. And I think Shimano has really hit on something that is extremely impressive to us, especially in these crankbait rods, whether it is in the SLX series, that's a $100 price point, the Intenzas here at $150, the Zodius at just over $200. They just make some killer freaking crankbait rods. They have done an excellent job with them, and this rod's no exception. So what I've got here is I've got a 7'10" heavy. I had to think about that for a second. I couldn't remember if it was a heavy or medium heavy. It is a heavy. So this is 7'10" heavy. This bait, or this rod rather, will skew more towards the heavy side of the spectrum. So any of your bigger baits, this can even go up to like a 10XD if you want to get into that sandbox. So I would probably, if I were considering this rod and the Falcon, if I were more in the 20-foot plus range, I'm going Intenza. If I were in the 15 to 20, I'm going with that Falcon Composite Cranker 2. So biggest differences here, you'll notice the Shimano Intenza, much lighter in physical weight, at least from a balance perspective. It's 4 inches longer. So if I put them on a scale, they're probably not that far off. But as far as how it feels in your hand, this Intenza feels much lighter. It has a more, I guess, modern crankbait feel, whereas it has a very soft tip, and then it's very crisp in the rear section of the rod. this low rider, you can feel that flex throughout. Like I said, it does have a defined backbone, but you can tell there's a lot of glass in that rod. Although this one specifically says glass in the name, you can tell it is a true composite. You can feel the characteristics of the graphite in this rod. Nice length butt section on this one. It does have the split grip. So like I said, my preference would be for a full cork handle. That is not a deal breaker to me. I don't have a huge, skew one way or another there. So that's fine, but it's a good length. Again, you really want to be able to get this, when you're retrieving this, you want to be able to get it under your armpit and really crank away on it. So I like that about it. Got a good guide train. And it just responds very well, loads up really well when you lean into it and make a long cast. You're going to be able to get plenty of distance. 710, perfect length. If I could pick one length, 710 is it. Just under 8 foot, that is perfect. Love that. And just honestly, for 150 bucks, you just can't beat this. So that's where we're at on that one. So now we're going to move to the under 300 category. And I've got 2 rods here, and both of them are well under 300. So we've covered that nicely. The first one, I'm going with the Daiwa Tatua Elite. This is an 8-foot glass rod, medium heavy. I love the Tatua Elite series. They have been very, very popular, especially since they were redesigned to this new iteration. And, I talked about how Shimano has done a great job with their crankbait rods. Daiwa's done the same. I mean, they've come out with some really good action, some really good models, and this one fits right in line with the rest of the lineup here. It's an 8-footer. It's perfect for kind of any deep crankbait you want to throw. It's got the backbone to throw the real heavy stuff, but you can get down. I mean, I'd even throw a 5XD on this. I mean, it wouldn't be my first choice for it, but it'll do it just fine. So you cover a lot of bases with this Tatua Elite rod, and it's fairly lightweight, not incredibly light, but light enough. It's not going to wear you out too bad. And again, big, thick diameter blank. Going to load up like a beast and really launch these baits. So I think, this rod comes in at like $189.99. So I think for that, for that kind of money, just under 200, it's just an excellent, excellent choice, and definitely can't go wrong here. So love the Tatua Elite. And now I'm going to go with the other one. We're just over, I think these Zodius rods are like $229, somewhere in that range. And that's what I've got here. Is I've got the Zodius 711. And it's a medium heavy, and it's a glass rod as well. So all of the characteristics I just mentioned in the Tatua Elite hold true for this Zodius. These are much lighter in physical weight as far as the feel goes, and the crispness. Like I keep referencing crispness for this, and it's the difference between a rod that you can tell uses a ton of glass and a little graphite, and then a true composite that's kind of a blend of the two. And this definitely skews more towards the graphite feel of just a more traditional crankbait rod, but it does have a thicker blank to it. It is plenty durable enough to just feel like you can really just manhandle it. Gonna cast a long way, 7'11". It's got the right tip. It's got the right backbone. Again, a nice long handle that you can really throw under your armpit. EVA foam feels fine. The only thing, I don't like the hook keeper on this. This is way too small of a hook keeper for a plug with some big trebles. But what I do like about it, I do like that it's on the, below the rear grip. Anytime you put this, especially this style of hook keeper, up above the foregrip, the line gets, caught underneath it all the time, and you're constantly fighting that. So I do like the placement of it, but as far as practical application, I wish it had a different hook keeper, but obviously that's not going to make the decision on whether I purchase a rod or not. So yeah, I think this Zodius rod, it's got the carbon monocoque handle on the very rear portion of the rod, which is just a cool design and looks really nice. The aesthetics on this rod are excellent, and like we've been singing the praises of the Shimano rods through this whole series, and there's a good reason for that, and that's because a lot of us fish with them. I personally own this rod. This is my deep cranking rod. So I mean, this one has the tags on it. This is not my literal rod, but this is the rod I use for it. So I love this rod. I cannot say enough good things about the way it'll throw these bigger baits. So anything, I mentioned I'd throw a 5XD on that Tatua Elite. I'd do the same on this one. I throw a 10XD on it too when I need to, and any of those other big baits. You can tell I throw a lot of striking crankbaits because that's kind of my benchmark. It seems to be the go-to in the industry. So I just think this checks all the boxes, hits everything that you would want it to hit in a good deep cranking rod. So Now we've got the, I don't care what it costs, just give me the best category. Here's the deal, guys. My job depends on you guys buying rods, and preferably expensive rods. But please do not spend over $300 on a deep cranking rod. Please don't. I'm begging you. There's no reason to. And I know somebody has a high-end JDM Megabass rod that they say, oh, it's the best, and it probably is, and I'm glad that you like it. There is no need for that. There's no, spend your money elsewhere. Spend it on, you know, an extra sensitive bottom contact rod, or spend it on a, you know, a particular action that you just feel like you have to have, and spend a little extra there, or buy a more expensive reel. Whatever you're going to do. But please do not spend it on a deep cranking rod. So what I did, I just added a third under $300 rod, because I don't even want to recommend an over $300 option. First of all, there aren't that many of them because the industry knows you don't need an expensive deep cranking rod, but there's still some out there. We're just going to skip it all together and go with a third under 300 option, which is a Dobyns product. And Dobyns makes awesome crankbait rods, and it did not feel right to not include them in this video because they need to at least have a rod represented, because they are kind of, I mean, there was a period until Shimano really came on strong with these crankbait rods here recently. Dobyns was kind of like my go-to crankbait rod. They make awesome actions. Just the actions on the crankbait rods are spot on, like top to bottom. So they just are. So we got a Champion XP. We got the DC 806 CB. So this rod is an 8-footer, very lightweight, full cork handle, launches the piss out of a crankbait. I mean, launches it. Excellent tip to it. Excellent taper. Smooth taper, smooth transition from tip to butt. Does have some power in the rear section of the rod. The thing I will say about this one, it is more sensitive, as in you're going to feel more vibration transmitted through this rod because of the graphite content, I guess would be the best way to put that. I'm sure that's not the technical explanation for it, but there's just, being that this is, you know, it is a composite rod, as all crankbait rods are, but being that it is not glass focused, there's going to be a, you know, there's going to be a better transmission of vibration for this. And although you don't need that with a crankbait, it is nice that you can tell the transition from rock, you know, you're fishing a shell bed, you get over the top of the shells and now you're in mud. It's nice to be able to feel that. It's beneficial to be able to feel that. You want to be able to feel when you're on a road bed or a rock pile, or when you hit a stump, and all of those things are just easier. It's not that you can't with any of these other rods, you obviously can, but it's just easier with this rod because it does transmit vibration better than at least most of these other rods. Zodius is probably pretty close, but anyway, this rod is fantastic. You know, the correct length butt section, the correct tip, a good set of, you know, Fuji guides. There's plenty of eyelets here so you don't get any of that blank slap. It does everything that you need a big crankbait rod to do. And you know, the 805 CB is just 1 power lighter. That's an excellent option too, and I very well could have included it, but I just prefer the little bit more powerful option of the 806. So that's why we went with that. It just gives you more versatility. I feel like you can still throw the lighter, or the shallower diving baits, I should say, but you also have the option to step up if you need to. So I think this covers pretty much all the bases. And we've got 5 freaking awesome deep cranking rods here, and I'm getting excited. I want to go to Kentucky Lake next week and get on a nice ledge bite. So we're going to try to make that happen. Throw a like on this video if I should take Rob, the camera guy, who has never fished in his life. I'm just kidding, he has. But if I should take Rob, the camera guy, and go down to Kentucky Lake and film some awesome ledge fishing, because it's back. Kentucky Lake is back. And we need a big deep cranking stick. And we're going to bring a pile of them with us, and we're going to have some fun. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.